The first shot, cracked red clay, wind carrying the dry hiss of sage, and a sky bruised gold with streaks of dusty teal. Ethan Cole's boots scrape the trail. His face is a map of old guilt. He rides alone, eyes on the horizon, jaw set like a locked gate. He hears a ragged whinny before he sees the collapse. A massive black stallion, ribs sharp under mud, one leg broken, breathing shallow as if the prairie itself is squeezing the life from him. Ethan doesn't hesitate. He rides off the main trail, drops from the saddle, and wades into the sucking mud. The horse's flared nostrils are bloodless. Its dark eye, suddenly steady, meets Ethan's. A breathless moment. Man who ran to escape a past, and beast who's dying, both locked in a silence that feels like fate. Ethan whispers, "Not on my watch," and the camera tightens on his hand reaching for the stallion's flank. He hauls Silverwind, legendary among the tribes for carrying storm omens, into the lee of a broken mesquite. The storm above is distant thunder, the light waning. Ethan improvises a splint from fractured saddlewood, washes grit from open wounds with the last of his water, and rubs sage mixed with whiskey into the cuts. His own hands tremble slightly. The memory of the race that killed a rival flickers as a ghost behind his eyes. He spent years pretending speed and risk were behind him. This is different. Saving a dying thing, no crowd, no bet, just survival and a small, stubborn mercy. As dusk deepens, Silverwind's breath steadies enough for Ethan to sit back, dragging his palm over his stubbled chin. The stallion's black mane ripples in a wind that smells faintly of rain and iron. Then, a twitch beneath the thick hair. A single black and gold hawk feather slips free, falling into Ethan's palm. Its tip glows with a warmth that has no source, pulsing like a heartbeat. He doesn't flinch. He's seen the strange before, but never felt it knead into his bones. The feather's vibration is subtle, a low hum that threads into Ethan's pulse. The trail spirit doesn't speak in words. It hits him as a vision, brief, sharp, caravans standing at the valley edge, a shared water circle, children of two worlds playing while a banner waves. And beyond that, dust-choked ruin, cracked wells, fighting over a dead spring. Silverwind's dark eyes widen, and his hot breath fogs Ethan's jacket. The whisper rides the wind. Heal the runner. Choose at dusk. Water remembers broken promises. Ethan clenches the feather, feeling both weight and demand. He is not a prophet. He is a man who once raced to erase guilt. Now the path forks under his boots. He hauls the stallion toward the nearest outpost, Raven's Hollow, supporting Silverwind with a makeshift sling. The feather is tucked inside his coat, warm against his sternum. The settlement's low wooden roofs huddle like nervous men around a shrinking spring. Rumors ripple over the dusty boardwalk. Ethan hears them even before he dismounts. Talk of Caleb Mercer, the land baron moving through the valley with a polished smile and a private militia, tightening control on water rights and quietly buying influence. Mercer's men have already asked about strange stock and drought miracles. A dying horse of legendary blood, rescued in secret, is a prize whispered about in both saloon corners and council chambers. Ethan's internal conflict tightens. This is a chance to sell the story, to erase the past with a big score. A promoter's voice echoes from memory. Race him. Turn him into money. Nobody asks about yesterday when you're winning today. The feather flares faintly, a reminder unspoken. The vision wasn't just about profit. Silverwind, breathing shallow but steadier, presses his head into Ethan's side, grounding him. Ethan resolves. No race, no sale. He will protect the horse. Whatever the cost, he will choose the harder trail. The last light of day spills across the ridge. 5 thin columns of dust bloom on the far horizon, each rising from a different direction. They are not rustlers. They're colored smoke, turquoise, red, braided yellow, white sage gray, and deep indigo, drifts like silent signals. Ethan pauses, hand over the feather, watching. The wind carries a dry, almost whispered echo. By dusk, they wait. He tightens his grip on Silverwind's rein and rides toward the trading post. Knowing the valley's quiet has shifted, the choice is no longer abstract. The trail is watching. The morning after, Raven's Hollow smells of dry sweat and stale whiskey. Ethan gets Silverwind into a half-collapsed barn behind the trading post, nursing the stallion with measured water and soaked grain. His hands are rough, movements economical. No theatrical tending, just necessary care. The feather tucked under his shirt pulses faintly whenever he reaches for it, a quiet reminder of choice. Word spreads fast in a place starved for signs. Townsfolk glance with mixtures of superstition and opportunism. Some whisper the horse carries curses, others murmur it's a blessing. Ethan ignores them, focused, but the old itch, profit, redemption, nags beneath the surface. Sheriff Davis Harlan walks in, hat low, eyes scanning. He doesn't pretend neutrality. Mercer's men are asking about the spring again, he says quietly, leaning against the stall frame. And the stories of your horse. Word gets twisted like wire out here. He'll come asking questions. He's got a way of turning a shared well into a private empire. Ethan nods. He hears the subtext. Side with Mercer, keep peace and water rights shift. Oppose him. Face pressure that could make the valley crack. The sheriff's gaze flicks to Silverwind. You keep him alive. You keep the trail watching. You sell him. You feed the same hunger that killed your last ghost. Ethan doesn't answer. He already knows which ghost he's trying not to become. The promoter arrives in the afternoon. Slick hair, cheap charm, a vest that says opportunity in the way it creaks. He doesn't pretend it's about the horse's health. You fix him up, race him. I'll get the crowd, the bets, the stories. One big win, and your name buries the past. The offer is a knife wrapped in velvet. Ethan feels the feather throb, a low, disapproving beat. He remembers the face of the man who died because Ethan pushed too far for glory. The promoter's grin cracks when Ethan says, "Not interested." He leaves a card anyway. The world is full of open doors that smell like escape. Caleb Mercer comes next, not with a shout, but with a measured parade. He walks through town in clean boots, a polished cane tapped twice at the post office, and his men move like shadows with purpose. He sits at the trading post's long table as if he belongs, orders coffee, and talks water rights as if he's discussing weather. The spring needs governance, he tells the councilman when invited. A strong hand turns wasteland into yield. The valley will thrive under structure. Behind his smile, a scout slips through streets with a notebook. Who's healing what? Who's guarding which animal? Ethan sees one of Mercer's men near the barn one evening, reflection of a lantern in the cracked window. He intercepts quietly, forcing the scout into daylight. Mercer's envoy doesn't outright threaten, he insinuates. A valuable animal left to die is salvage. The legend behind it could make your name or cost you everything. Ethan's refusal is simple. He's not yours. The tension tightens like a rope around a jugular. The native scouts arrive in fragmentary waves, silent, observant, carrying symbols of their peoples. Matto of the Lakota watches from the ridge with a turquoise bead string draped across his saddle horn. Wapi of the Cheyenne brings red-dyed hide, braided with remembrance strips. Shoni of the Pawnee, Tasunka of the Otoe, and Kiona of the Arapaho fan out like quiet punctuation in the edges of town. They don't announce themselves with fanfare. They show recognition. Ayana's apprentice, a young woman with both fire and softness, moves between them, carrying a small carved flute and wrapped sage. They speak in controlled gestures, offering nothing yet observing everything. Their eyes settle on Ethan and Silverwind. The feather's warmth quickens as their presence grows, a harmonizing chord under tension. That night, alone in the barn, Ethan sleeps fitfully. The vision returns, clearer, not a threat, but a layering of futures. He sees the valley split. Mercer's irrigation walls choking the shared spring, families fighting over narrowed access, militia patrols pushing out tribal riders. Elsewhere, the same water-running shared channels. A council of mixed faces around a communal fire, caravans moving freely, Silverwind leading ceremonial rides, children learning both languages. The mirror shatters twice, one image with burned fields, the other with crops humming green. He wakes with the taste of dust and cedar in his mouth, the feather hot in his palm like a pulse. He chooses quietly, internally, again. Protector, not profiteer. Dusk comes with a peculiar stillness. The valley's usual sound, cattle calls, boards creaking, men shouting for deals, contracts. From 5 directions, thin columns of dust rise, each threaded with a culturally distinct signal. Turquoise smoke curling from broken reed bundles, a braided yellow plume, a deep indigo curl, white sage-gray drift, and a streak of red that smolders without burning. The 5 elders arrive, not scouts now, but presents. Maddo, Wapi, Shoni, Tasunka, and Kiona dismount in unison on the ridge overlooking the settlement. They carry ritual objects, a trail stone bound with horsehair and river willow, a drum smoked in aged willow bundles, peace medicine, and a war pipe wrapped in cedar. Their silence is a loaded pause. Ethan meets them at the boundary of the trading post, Silverwind supported nearby, the pack-like pressure from their arrival vibrating through the ground like a low drum. One elder, Matto, steps forward, turquoise beads catching the last light. His voice is calm, deep. Trail bearer, you've pulled the runner from death. The trail waits for your answer. The feather flares. The air tightens. Behind them, Mercer's men shift uneasily. The sheriff watches with careful restraint. The moment stretches. Choice is no longer abstract. The valley's future has gathered in quiet expectation at the rim of dusk. The elders stand aligned. Mercer, sitting just below, lifts a hand as if about to speak. Ethan's jaw tightens. The trailstone hums faint under its shroud. The question hangs. Will the valley fracture under old ambitions or bind itself by a new, shared covenant? They arrange the circle before the last light dies. Cedar logs scarred by fire, the trailstone placed at the center on a flat stone, its horsehair binding taut, humming like a held breath. The elders sit with ritual gravity. Caleb Mercer parks just outside the ring with his lieutenants in stiff posture, smiling with a thin edge. Sheriff Harlan stands between them, badge glinting, eyes flicking for the fracture point. Townsfolk gather at the perimeter, silent witnesses, their lives tethered to whatever decision moves next. Silverwind, tethered nearby, shifts occasionally, ears pricked, the hawk feather tucked into Ethan's shirt, almost glowing in response. Ayanna steps forward, cloth whispering, and lifts the trailstone. Her hands are steady. She doesn't preach, she opens. She pours a small cup of the valley's shared water over it. The stone drinks, then flares, projecting a living overlay above the fire. 2 futures braided in light. One shows cracked earth, armed patrols slamming gates, children fighting near dried channels, Mercer's irrigation walls stretching like cages. The other unfurls green corridors, mixed faces trading goods, a shared council banner, Silverwind leading peace rides, hands placed around the same trailstone in ritual. The vision doesn't explain, it exposes. Mercer scoffs, his voice silky. Trick of light. You paint fear to scare cooperation. Structure brings order. Legends bring chaos. He gestures and one of his men moves toward the stallion. Thin provocation. Ethan's hand flexes. The feather pulses hard, a near physical warning. He steps into the ring, eyes level with Mercer. This isn't about your order, Ethan says, voice low. It's about the valley's breath. You can take control and suffocate it, or you can share it and let it grow. One of Mercer's lieutenants reaches for a sidearm. The air shifts, not wind, but pressure, a ripple from the trailstone as if the pact itself tightened. The gun feels heavy in his hand. His fingers hesitate. A silence snaps across the clearing. The lieutenant's arm lowers instinctively. Mercer's smile thins. He leans in, trying to reclaim dominance. You'd bind me with a story? Before Mercer can push further, the third presence storms the edge. The mercenaries hired by an outside rival, masked in dust-dark gear, barrels leveled, intent clear. They break the tense quiet with a sharp intrusion. Nobody signs anything tonight. Their leader's voice cracks like brittle wood. Hands go to weapons. The circle fractures into instinct. Ethan doesn't reach for his gun. He moves between the intruders and the trailstone, body squared. The feather on his chest blazes, green fire under denim. Ayanna spreads her arms, chanting in layered cadence. The elders join, voices braided from 5 tongues, each syllable a thread. The trailstone responds. The incoming bullets hiss out of the air as if passing through a thicker medium. Steel slows, drops harmlessly into the dust. Faces whiten. The mercenary's leader snarls. Fires again. The same thing happens. His second shot falls, whistle lost, leaving him unarmed and stunned. The power is quiet, not violent. Pressure that disarms will before it touches skin. Mercer freezes, the veneer of control cracking. Sheriff Harlan's hand instinctively rests on his holster but doesn't draw. The mercenaries stand like men caught in a tide they can't fight. One of them, young, eyes flickering between defiance and fear, lowers his gun first. The others follow, not out of surrender, but because the weight of what is outweighs the impulse to ignite. Ethan's voice breaks the held breath. You came to stop this because you thought power belonged to the strongest draw. The trailstone shows what's already in us. We either choose division or we choose keeping the valley alive together. He turns to Mercer. Sign it, not because you believe in a story, but because you're tired of fighting ghosts. Silence stretches. The elders lean in. Ayanna lifts a small leather scroll, its seals unbroken. The pack language is etched in elderberry ink. Shared water rights, joint stewardship, recognition of the horse as a symbol, not possession. Ethan dips a quill. He signs first, hands steady despite the tremor under his skin, guilt tempered into purpose. Sheriff Harlan follows, placing his name with a reluctant nod. Mercer stares at the trailstone's glow, then signs beneath, his letters shaky, ink smudged where his fingers tighten. The mercenaries, now unarmed, watch the gravity shift. One of Mercer's own men, previously deferential, sets his rifle button to the dirt. Wordless refusal behind his eyes. The trailstone sinks briefly into the shared water basin in the center. It doesn't vanish. It reforms. A thin green disk, glowing, warm, not a threat, a heartbeat. Ayanna intones the closing. Stewardship over ownership. The trail holds what hands agree to carry. Break it, and every breath here fractures. The elders place their palms over the packed disc in turn. A ritual seal, not mystical coercion, but collective witness, settles like a new gravity. Raging pressure subsides into an uneasy calm. Mercer exhales, a sound trapped somewhere between concession and calculation. His lieutenant lowers his head. Sheriff Harlan studies Ethan, then looks past him at the valley, as if seeing it newly. The would-be saboteurs slump, not defeated by force, but held in place by something that showed them their own fractured reflections. Ethan steps back. Silverwind nearby shifts, nostrils flaring as if acknowledging the new shape of the trail. Ayanna meets Ethan's eyes, no celebration, only quiet agreement. The elders' faces soften marginally, pact forged, tension redirected. As the firelight licks low, a distant rumble rises, not from the valley's settled quiet, but from far ridge dust. Another player watches the newly bound pact. The trail is altered, but the future still tests whether teeth of ambition will gnaw at its edges. The moment the pact is sealed, the pressure that hung like a taut wire over the valley loosens, not dissolving conflict, but redirecting its force. The trailstone, now the packed disc, rests in a shallow basin of shared spring water. Its glow is steady, a soft green pulse, like breath synchronized among those who touched it. The elders lower their hands. Silence holds for a beat longer than etiquette demands. Then the world exhales. Mercer's signature smears slightly where his finger clenched. He doesn't speak the words of agreement. He doesn't need to. His eyes track the children at the edge of the clearing, watching two boys of different blood chase a stray feather into the dust. For the first time, a flicker of something unsettled crosses his face. Not shame exactly, but the recognition that control without consent fractures faster than he planned. He pulls Ethan aside, voice controlled. You didn't sell him. You didn't make a spectacle. That's the problem with you. People see you do the hard thing and think maybe they've been doing it wrong. Ethan nods once, not conceding, just absorbing the weight of that admission. Sheriff Harlan, standing near the wagon rims, tightens his shoulders. He had expected to enforce order. Instead, he's witnessing a redistribution of power that leaves him both relieved and exposed. He claps Mercer's reluctant lieutenant on the shoulder, a quiet gesture that signals stability, then turns to Ethan. You didn't answer my question, Harlan says low. Why not race him? Ethan lifts the hawk feather from its place near Silverwind's mane and lets it brush the sheriff's knuckles. Because some wins don't need a finish line. They just need witnesses. The mercenaries who tried to sabotage the council linger awkwardly at the margins. Their leader, young, cynical, now disarmed by something he can't name, walks over slowly. He doesn't apologize. He places his palm near the packed disc, hesitates, then lifts it slightly and nods toward Ethan. It's a silent truce. The elders accept it without ceremony. The pack's perimeter now includes even those who came to break it. The settlement shifts almost immediately. Traders from tribes arrive with modest stalls. They set up side by side with stubborn settlers. The first joint patrol, tribal riders riding alongside sheriff deputies, moves down the lane, checking water channels and exchanging curt nods. A temporary council forms under a roughshod shade, decisions made with voices layered, not overridden. The packed disc is mounted on a carved cedar plinth by the spring. Every morning, a hand from each side touches it. Light taps, ritualized, unspoken reaffirmation. Later at dusk, the elders gather quietly. Ayana kneels and lifts a thin green sliver formed from a drop of water and a piece of the old trail stone. She places it into Ethan's palm. The trail keeps watching, she says. It will test the edges. Your courage didn't end at signing. Ethan's jaw tightens, not from fear, but from the awareness that vigilance now replaces reaction. News of the pack leaks. Word travels along feeder trails. The valley that was drying now hums with cautious trade. Mercer's irrigation board meets, not with unilateral decrees, but with tribal representation tagging along. His own men grumble, but they follow the new shape because the alternative is friction that splinters supply lines. In the background, the promoter's card with its promise of spectacle fades under the work of rebuilding. No race, but shared maintenance of the watercourse. Silverwind, once barely alive, now stands in the corral, his black coat a little brighter, the hawk feather braided into his mane beside River Willow. He doesn't run in competitions. He leads the first peace rides, short, deliberate circuits where Ethan, elders, and children from both cultures walk alongside, exchanging small gestures. A bead tied, a shared loaf, a nod that says, "We saw it together." The psychological shift is subtle but pervasive. Mercer's men start referring to the spring as our source in private, not always with warmth, but with less guarded language. The tribal elders carry weight differently, less defensive, more claiming of their part in a story that now includes their signatures. Townsfolk stop asking if the horse is a curse. Instead, they ask when the next gathering is. Ethan's own guilt, once a heavy companion, eases into a steadier presence. He no longer rides to outrun it. He rides with it, a reminder of the choice that reframed the valley. From a distant ridge, a new column of dust rises. Surveyors, not hostile yet, bearing marks of territorial ambition. The pact holds, but the map is shifting. The trail, now bound by witness and will face its first external test. 6 months later, the valley looks less like a contested scar and more like a stitched landscape. Irrigation channels, shared and lined with willow cuttings, catch early light in clean, even ribbons. Structures have softened. Settler boardwalks now flank carved tribal posts. Painted signs mix English and native glyphs. Children chase each other across the plaza, laughing in layered tongues, their games improvised from feathers and broken wagon spokes. The packed disc sits waist-high on a cedar plinth beside the spring, a faint green pulse visible at dawn and dusk. A heartbeat the whole community instinctively checks with a light tap before meetings, marriages, or trades. Ethan Cole has shifted. He's no longer only a lone rider with a past, he's the bridge keeper. He patrols the shared trail, not with dominion, but with calibrated presence, listening to disputes, diffusing attempts to hoard water, quietly repairing a fence with a mixed crew of tribal apprentices and settler youths. His guilt hasn't vanished. It's wired into his purpose. When he hears the distant creak of a wagon, he doesn't tense to outrun something anymore. He evaluates whether it carries aid, news, or threat. The hawk feather remains braided into Silverwind's mane. now also adorned with river willow, symbolic layers of alliance. Silverwind moves with an ease that was impossible in the beginning. He leads the peace rides, short circuits around the valley where Ethan, elders, sheriff deputies, and tribal riders ride together, exchanging nods, handing off small gifts. A bead here, a bundle of dried herbs there. The horse isn't a prize to be won. He's a living reminder that a dying runner pulled back from the edge became a catalyst. People who once saw him as Omen now touch his flank before entering council sessions. Caleb Mercer's posture has shifted in subtle, begrudging ways. He still arrives early to irrigation board meetings, still irons his shirt sharp, but he now listens when a tribal elder speaks. His name appears on the public ledger, irrigation cooperative member, alongside tribal symbols. He confides once to Ethan while watching children repair a shared wellhead. "You turned a gamble into a glue. I didn't expect that to stick." Ethan replies simply, "Glue holds only if both hands press." Mercer's silence afterward carries something like a truce. Not friendship, but a hardened respect. Sheriff Harlan has stopped framing every dispute as law versus chaos. He frames them as promise versus breach. He carries the pack's weight with a quiet adjustment, checking channels with tribal riders, letting their input shape enforcement. The young mercenary who once aimed at the trailstone now trains under Tasunka, learning the rhythms of the shared patrol. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, he says, "I didn't know peace could feel like work." The psychological shift across the valley is cumulative. Fear of scarcity is replaced by cautious stewardship. Old rivalries soften under new rituals. The seasonal trail gathering where drums echo, stew is shared, and stories are told by mixed voices around the fire. The elders still speak with gravity, but their eyes now flicker with lighter threads. Pride, not just vigilance. Ethan stands at the edge of one such gathering, watching the firelight play over the packed disc's faint glow. Ayana joins him, notebook tucked under her arm, and asks, "Regret anything?" He considers the crooked post he's been meaning to straighten, then says, "Only that I waited so long to stop running." She smiles, something like relief more than joy. The valley's peace isn't naive. Surveyors have come, marked by the new dust plume on the ridge, intent not yet hostile but representational, territory officials, potential investors, and outsiders curious about the experiment. Their arrival is the first external reflection of the pack's ripple. Ethan watches them from the ridge, hand over the hawk feather hidden at his collar, sensing their calculations. The path ahead will demand choices, whether they will respect the covenant's edges or try to redraw them for old conveniences. Final image. Sunset spills amber across the shared fields. Ethan dismounts near the packed disc, places his palm gently on its surface. It pulses, warm and steady. Silverwind grazes nearby, the feather and willow catching the last light. Children shriek in the background, chasing fireflies that flicker like tiny green echoes of the disc. Ethan looks out over Rowan Trail, not as something he built alone, but as something held together by multiplied choices. He murmurs to no one, "We saved more than a horse." Ayana's voice answers softly, and the trail keeps watching.